And the more that we can increase that level of awareness, that consciousness in people's own agency, it's almost like it is a mission, it's a movement versus just coaching individual people or businesses, right? That's obviously great. But I
Yeah.
really do feel like it is an overall movement of how can we create that ripple effect to help more people feel more capable of doing more amazing things. As Steve Jobs says, in this one beautiful life, can they make something beautiful that will be left behind for humanity to help other people? And the way that we can help as coaches is to help each one of us just tap into that brain of ours and remember we have it and that we can use it.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. Before Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7 and 8 figure career coaching businesses myself and consulted with 2 career coaching businesses that are now doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or just building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business. Hey, Kari, really appreciate you joining today. I'm super honored that you accepted our invite to be one of our first guests, because when I first read your story and listened to your podcast, I thought, wow, Kari's going to be one of those guests that comes in and it's going to change a lot of mindset around coaching, why to become a coach, and most importantly, how to think about the greater relationship between your coaching practice and your life. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here.
And of course, for all the listeners here who don't know your background, I would love to have you share your origin story here. As in, you had a whole entire career before you became a coach. I'd love to hear about that, because I know some of our audience members also will relate to the fact that coaching wasn't like you came out of college and said, "I'm going to be a coach."
Exactly. It is a different path that I took to get into coaching. And I think that happens to a lot of people. I started off thinking initially that I was going to go to law school. And then what ended up happening was I thought, okay, I'm going to learn from the ground up. And so I actually went to college and then got my paralegal certificate and actually worked as a medical malpractice defense paralegal for quite a number of years. And during that time, even though I was excelling in the position, was extremely high stress because I just didn't know how to operate from a level that wasn't incredibly perfectionistic, striving to constantly prove that I was, worthy of being there, which in itself isn't a bad thing, except for the fact if you turn yourself inside out trying to keep reaching a certain level of self-worth through your productivity. Long story short, after a long time, I ended up burning out, and I thought it was the type of work that I was doing because there are obviously high stakes in law, and my perfectionist tendencies made it so that I never wanted to make a mistake. And as we know, what happens if you never want to make a mistake is you worry about getting the right thing the first time, or getting it right the first time, which means that you actually never allow yourself to really truly grow. You're constantly defending the thing that you did do instead of opening yourself up to the possibility of the excitement of growth and development over time and the person that you could become, and the process of just getting excited to keep growing and learning in your profession and growing in capability. That was something that I struggled with. And since I didn't operate at that level, I was constantly striving to be the best that I could at the first take. And when I didn't measure that or I didn't meet that, I would go into just incredible bouts of depression and low self-worth. And then I would try to combat that by doing it even better the next time. But again, it had to be perfect from myself as opposed to just asking questions, getting feedback, all the kinds of things that we think about when we talk about fixed mindset versus growth mindset. Long story short, that led to just a cycle of striving for worthiness through my work product, and then constantly feeling like I was defending that worthiness by the next work product. And it never gave me the opportunity to really learn how to become resilient and grow. And so because of that, I ended up leaving law altogether. Long story short, there was a long cycle of depression, and it was such that it affected everything. Depression does have a tendency to affect your family. I had 2 girls, one at the time, but then another little girl at the time. And I couldn't seem to keep all the balls in the air. I wanted to be the best mom that I could. I wanted to be the best, paralegal that I could. I wanted to eventually go to law school, but then I was like, I can't even, manage the paralegal aspect, which was making me bring home, home work on the weekends. And I was just constantly thinking if I just put in more hours, I would finally be able to manage everything. And at some point, all the balls come crashing down. And so I hit rock bottom. And long story short, when you hit rock bottom later in life, in hindsight, it becomes a gift. During the time, it's incredibly tenuous. But what I've learned from that experience is that rock bottoms actually allow you to come to a point where you say, what am I willing to do to move forward? Am I willing to finally face these things that have been limiting me and have caused me to self-sabotage my entire life? Am I finally willing to face that? Is this the time that you're going to say, there's no place else you can go but up, and say whatever it takes? And the reason why I think rock bottom is a gift, and I talk about it now, is because now my coaching is we don't have to get to rock bottom, because we can take a look at rock bottom and say what actually happens. You say, I don't care what other people think. I'm going to do what I need to do to help myself get better. And it's going to be all the thoughts that have gotten me here are going to continue to get me there. And if I want a different result, then I need different thinking. Am I willing to put in the work? And if you can know that that's what's going to happen at rock bottom, you get to, in the present day, decide, why wait? Let's start doing this work now and maybe save ourselves decades of years that could have been spent in a different way. And that's basically the driving force for me helping people now, is I recognize just how much time didn't need to be spent going down a path. It could have saved myself so much suffering. And so that's ultimately why I got into coaching, is because I recognize that people are spending so much time unnecessarily in their head trying to look for solutions to fix the past so that they can move forward into the future, and it's unnecessary.
No, no, that was beautifully said. As in, I'm glad you didn't keep the long story short, actually, and expounded on it. And what I found is that a lot of coaches, it's the same route that how we became coaches, because we want to save people time, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when I first started my first career coaching business, my consulting offer, it was basically, it took me weeks to be able to prepare for just a simple interview when I was trying to get a job in management consulting. But I wanted people to save time. So instead of doing weeks and months, how do you get into days of prep? So you're saving like hundreds of hours of prep time
Yes.
with a higher success rate, right? And it's the same thing with Purple Circle as well, is as coaches become members of Purple Circle, it's like the idea that how do I compress 2 years of learning for them into like 2 months or even 2 weeks, depending
Absolutely.
on what we're working, right? So it's like, that's the mindset. It's like, we want to give people back time. And if we aren't able to do that, it's like, well, why even have a coach if a coach is not adding value to you? And it's a pretty amazing journey that you went on from your own discovery of, hey, we don't have to hit rock bottom, into like, well, how do I give this to others? And so I'm curious, like after you made that transition, you covered, and you're like, you know what, I want to do this, I want to have coaching. How did you get your first clients?
So what I started to do was, I think before that, before I got the first clients, I actually knew that I had to start. I didn't think that I was going to be a coach, to be honest with you. I just wanted to be a different mom. I wanted to be a different person to my loved ones, and I knew that in order to do that, I had to learn how to be different with myself. And so I think that's very familiar with a lot of coaches, especially coaches who maybe work in my space, which is basically helping people start being different with themselves first by learning how to talk to themselves differently, have a constant inner monologue that's more supportive versus sabotaging. So actually the first few years was me just trying to figure out how could I actually hold the belief that if I learned to manage my mind, if I really took 100% ownership for my thoughts and my emotions and my actions and the results that I got, if I continued to do that, would I be able to change my life? So I continued to kind of like focus on that question, believing that if other people could do it, then there must be something to it. So why
Hmm.
not try it? And so once I actually saw the truth of that, though, that when you do really take ownership for your thoughts and you recognize that thoughts are actually optional, those are things that now people know. But for a long time, that just really wasn't, unless you're listening to Tony Robbins and people, obviously way ahead of the times, you don't necessarily hear that in school. And so you're just constantly thinking and living at the effect of the thoughts that you have, not being aware that there are other things that you could be thinking and that you could, in fact, choose them. And so once I actually saw the experiment play out and I saw the results of that, I did see that, just because I had a thought didn't mean that I needed to keep it. And that's nice to know because a lot of the thoughts were incredibly harmful and destructive. And so there's no path forward, no way for you to be resilient if you don't have those supportive thoughts. And once I recognized, and I heard actually a life coach say, your thoughts create your emotions. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally feel anxiety and I feel insecure and I feel incredibly unworthy most of the time. And if those are emotions and my thoughts are creating them, it's almost like math. It was almost like a formula. Wait a second, I can use thoughts on purpose to create different emotions. And I don't have to feel this way all the time, hope like waking up hoping that my emotions are different. And just that type of awareness was so life changing. And all of a sudden it's like you have this mental framework that you can use throughout the day and see it play out in real time. And because of that, I think it was so life changing. I knew it wasn't just like a success tool. It was literally a mental health and emotional well-being tool. And it was something that I felt like everybody should be able to have access to. And if part of the joy in life is getting to have your work be something that you feel is going to help other people, then this might be the thing that might be my thing, is what I was thinking. So that was how I got the jump from, first of all, trying to save my own life and then try to be better for my own family and my girls, and to then decide maybe this is something that I could do to help other people. Maybe this could be a contribution that I could make. So the first clients then became, how do I start sharing this information? Not necessarily being a coach. So I started a kind of a health and wellness blog, a mental health blog, which no longer exists, but it's just like sharing what I was experiencing and how this thoughts creating your feelings and your feelings actually determining what you do, how it actually worked in real life. And I would give real life examples. And then through that, I finally decided to just start posting on Instagram, just the different things that I was learning and the things that were playing out. And from there was a sitting on the fence moment where I finally had to say, you know what, I can either pretend that I don't really want to be a coach, or I can say, what would it be like if I said, yes, that is what I want, and what do I need to do mentally and emotionally to get myself there? And that's how it started.
Thank you for sharing that. Is it one of the things you mentioned here, and I want to listen to the listeners as well, is the framework that your emotions become your thoughts. And I've also heard it as your emotions become your thoughts and your thoughts become your action. As in, it plays out in both our personal life, but also in our professional life. Like our personal life is like, if we feel insecure about being a parent, then of course our thoughts are like, oh no, I got to do more for my kids, got to make sure they have everything. And of course, it causes actions that we later think, okay, we shouldn't have done that. And on the reverse side of it, like even in our own practices, our own businesses, is I've seen this a lot with coaches in particular, is that if their emotional state is, I need to make this sale happen with this
Yes.
next person who reaches out, then all of a sudden your thought is, hey, I need to do everything I can to convince them to work with me. And then your actions, of course, come off as needy, it comes off as desperate, you follow up too many times, and all these other negativity comes in. And then one of the breakthroughs, of course, is when you shift that, you shift your emotion from like, all right, look, you're trying to help the person, not trying to help yourself here. Then it comes off to your thoughts are, all right, well, how do I help this person out? How do I follow up with value instead of the fifth time following up? Hey, did you see my last email? It's more like, hey, Kari, I thought about you the other day of this. I thought this would be helpful for the relationship you mentioned at work with your manager. So I wanted to send this along. So it becomes a different framing. And of course, as a result of that, everything else comes, right? The follow-ups get replied back to, the clients come in, but you have to shift at the core, right? Some people, they try to shift it at the action, but the actions come from your thoughts and your thoughts come from your emotions. So I really love that you broke that down, especially in your
Yes.
coaching practice as well.
Yeah, I think that is actually life changing. I think you hit upon probably something that all of us coaches face is, I mean, it is a common thing, right? We all don't want to be graspy, but at the same time, we do want to succeed as a coach, for multiple reasons. There's reasons, yeah, obviously, to help people. We are also doing this to change our family situation as well. What you said, I think, was actually really powerful. It actually literally does show that what actually just happened there. If you changed your thinking, which allowed you to have a different emotion, or you decided what emotion actually would be a better fit for the action that you need to take. If you want to come from a certain emotion, then what thinking do you need to have to be able to create that emotion? So if you want to come from a place of service, it's not going to come from, oh my gosh, I hope I get the sale, right? It's going to come from a different thought, something more like, that's right. I remember why I got here. I remember why I wanted to do this work. And you just feel it. And then it naturally comes from a place of service. So it kind of just like, if we really want to, I don't want to keep calling it an experiment, but that's the way that the people I work with hear it best, because they don't like the fluffy stuff. They want to know like scientific like facts. They want to know like there's like evidence to prove this. And so that's
Yeah.
fine. That's how the brain works. So if we can give your brain evidence of that in real time, that's a lot of what the coaching is saying, do you see how that happened? Do you see why you got this result this time instead of the other result, that time? So, yeah.
Exactly. It's like it's identifying the problem that's in their head on it and how to get through it. And funny enough, for those of you who are watching this on the video format on YouTube and whatnot, if you can see my background, you're like, hey, Davis, you're in a different place here. You literally have an ocean. As in, I'm at a conference in Brisbane right now in terms of speaking. And that's actually the topic I'm going to be speaking about is the mindset as a coach that we go through. And one of the things I'm going to talk about, Kari, you mentioned there, is what I call the hidden gem problem, which is the hidden gem is kind of like you're amazing at what you do, but you wish the world knew more about you. And so because you come from this place where you feel like, oh, I just got to go out there and market. I don't like marketing. I don't like sales. You go out there and you have these negative emotions towards marketing and sales. And of course, it goes through your thoughts and your thoughts become your action. And of course, it all shows where you're like, love it. And then at the end of the day, you're still frustrated. It's like that cyclical process that we talked about earlier in your parallel. It was like, hey,
Yes.
you wanted to be a perfectionist. It wasn't good enough. So you put more effort, but because of that, you put more stress on it. Eventually it goes in a cycle, right? So I love that parallel because it applies not just to our professional life, but also to our personal life. And of course, how we manifest ourselves into the work that we do as well. So that's really powerful here. Just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad you're
Yeah.
normalizing things that we all go through as coaches. So thank you for that.
Oh, yeah, and sometimes like sometimes people just think. I was talking about like I'm about to go do a consultation day with a coach that's doing not him particularly, but his company. They're doing like 100 million in terms of coaching, but it's kind of like we all go through the same process. They just think like, hey, Davis, this person is doing 100 million. There's no way they can relate to me. They still have the worries like, am I being the best I can? Am I showing up? Am I the right leader? It's just your problem sets just evolve over time on it, and so your thinking needs to evolve as well. So it's like that's the whole point of the podcast is I want to normalize some of the feelings that we go through as coaches because you always think that, hey, when I market to my potential clients, I have to show my best self. But sometimes the coaches, we're not special. We're not 100% every single day feeling like we're on top of it. Some days I feel like I'm on top of the world. And other days I'm just like, all right, do I really have to get out of bed today? And it's like one of those. I want to normalize that because it's like anything else. Like we treat our clients as if they're gonna make some transformation for them. We gotta be authentic to ourselves as well and saying that hey, some days we just have bad days and then it's not going to go on Instagram, or maybe it does and that's your spin on it, and but most
Yeah,
days
yeah.
are just not the high life that we see online, and other days it's just going through getting better.
Yeah, and you know what, Davis, I think one of the reasons why I found your story so compelling though too is after listening to your TEDx talk, I think it was, and then reading some of your blog posts. I think the reason why I resonated so deeply with especially your blog post. I don't know if it's still active or not, but for those of you who haven't read it, it's actually really incredibly helpful. But one of the things that you talk about is how you really engineer your life, recognizing what your brain will likely do. And so if your brain, and trying to make it as easy for your brain to create success. And I think that in my space where I, with my own life, let's just say I have a lot of thoughts. I think some people have just a lot of thoughts. If you're aware of that, you can recognize though that when you let them run amok, then you're not allowing your brain to serve you in the best way possible. But when you can recognize that, let's just say you have a lot of thoughts, then you can say, how can I limit or constrain my thinking to give me the best chance of success? And one of the things that I read in your blog post was trying to minimize the amount of decisions you have to make to create the actual natural outcome that you actually want. And that's kind of, I think, where I'm at with my clients as well. I was in my initial stages of coaching where a lot of it was self-compassion work, learning how to be kind to yourself and actually letting that be an okay thing to do instead of having be like one of those words that you want to resist, right? Because you're like, no, I'm way behind already. I need to actually get going. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And I even had in my earlier days, one of my first clients said, it is okay for you to go David Goggins on me. And I said, that's so interesting that he said that. And at the time, I was thinking, when I reflected on it later, why did he need me to go David Goggins on him? And like he was asking for it. Now with AI, we can just put in ChatGPT, like, hey, this is my thing for today. My brain is over here. please go get Dave, tell me how David Goggins would say this. Fine. That's great. This is actually technology. We can use it. But at the time I was thinking, oh, because that's the way he grew up, is thinking that he had kind of like, an authoritative figure. And he was concerned because he wasn't able to hold himself to that level of authority. And he had things he wanted to get done. And so we just kind of like, I just kind of asked him about that, why he thinks that, and what he needs to hear, why that would be important. And the reason why I mention that is because there are things that I think that at some point when we do like self-compassion work and healing work, we almost get to a point where we wonder, are we getting too soft, right? And we're trying to still accomplish great things, but now we spend a lot of time doing this self-compassion work and talking to ourselves differently. We almost have PTSD from the hypercritical inner voice that we had for so long that we spent all these years to actually maneuver our way out of. And now we're trying to figure out how to achieve the same level of success that we want or beyond, tap into that potential that we have. And now we believe that we can do it. But how do we get there? How do we bridge the gap from where we are now with holding ourselves to a certain level of excellence without going down the route of needing to be the drill master to get to that level of success, which is how we previously got it. I
Yeah.
hope that was in some way an answer to something.
Well, you pointed out one aspect of it, right? So there's 2 points I'm going to call out here. Is the first part of it is like you started off, hey, you're like the nice coach, and what I've come to realize over time is we all start off like most of us, not every single person, but most of us start off like we want to be the nice coach. But really, what I realize is that eventually you hit a switch, and instead of being a nice coach, you become a kind coach. Kind meaning that you tell them what they need to hear for the long term, and you're not just playing nice to it. But it doesn't mean that you have to be David Goggins, military sergeant on them, but also at the same time, you're not giving them a verification of how they're feeling if what they're feeling isn't how they're going to be their best self. As in, you're able to call that out and say, hey, this is not actually this is self-serving in your way, but it's hurting you in other ways that you are trying to get over. And so I think that's like the first part I want to make is like that evolution of it. But the second thing you also mentioned too is like the value of the coach, right? You could actually just go to ChatGPT and write these things, but there's that human element of having that accountability or someone there who you can sometimes go through, share your thoughts, but also at the same time, feel as though there's someone who's going to challenge your ideas, ask those questions. Maybe one day AI could do this and it could be like a clone of us and whatnot. But until then, I think that's the value that we bring too, is that we have this other view of the person that we're not attached to them but we care about their outcome. And so I think that's the second point that gets hit, right? It's like the idea that we had a coach who was in Purpose Org. He said like this, he said it to me and he said, Davis, it's kind of like he's probably one of the coaches who has grown the most, but he also has a bunch of coaches along for everything from his communication skills to his relationship to his business and so forth. And he said something that just resonated with me. I keep saying is that he says, Davis, if I didn't take coaching and I tell people that I am a coach, it's kind of like a doctor who doesn't take medicine. It's kind of like, oh, it just stuck with me, right? And so I think you hit a really good point on that. And one thing I want to pull on too is you mentioned the work that you're doing with your clients, and we were talking about this offline as well, is that you have such a unique way of onboarding your clients. Like the first thing you do is not actually the work, but just making sure that there's a common language between the two of you and how you're expressing yourself. Could you walk through that? Because that's pretty unique, because most people are just, all right, let's just get started. Let's do some mindset. Let's do some vision planning. But you're like, all right, just a step before that.
Yeah, thank you. I think the thing is that a lot of people recognize that they could just go to YouTube or Google or listen to any number of podcasts and actually get an incredible amount of help, right? Like this podcast or other podcasts or audiobooks. There is a missing link, though, is that sometimes you have information overload and you're trying to figure out then why you're still stuck. You have all this information at your fingertips and you're trying to figure out, why does it seem like other people are growing, but maybe you're not quite connecting the dots in some way. And I think the reason why I bring this up is because, to me, I have learned that a lot of people have very unique brains, the way that they think. I mean, obviously, there is just this growing awareness of neurodivergence, whatever that means in terms of brains. All that means to me is, okay, you still can, whatever your goal that you have or whatever you would like in life, absolutely great. Let's keep that. We just might need to find different ways to get there, right? And let's use the brain that you have and the way that you're wired and figure out different ways for you to hear the same thing so that you can get what you need and finally feel like you are equipped to move forward in the way that best serves you. And I think that's one of the reasons why right now, at least up until this point, I've been doing my onboarding as a 90-minute coaching call. I think I originally heard it from, I think, is it Steve Chandler from Prosperous Coach? I don't, and not everybody does that. That's absolutely fine. But for right now, this is what I do, just that so that when I talk to people, I get the sense that number one, that they feel seen first because they've got a lot built up inside of them. And then number two, help them see that there's so many different ways that we could be thinking about the process of growth for them. And when they recognize that there are many different avenues, it doesn't have to be one specific way, and we get to figure out the best way that their brain needs to hear something, then it becomes a matter of exploration as to, I get to learn about how their brain operates. So for example, when I'm working with a software developer, I'm not talking in terms of, necessarily meditation per se, unless of course that's something that they actively practice. But if I have somebody who speaks very logically and they don't really, they're incredibly hard on themselves, but they don't really want to talk about self-compassion, that's fine. Let's break down what self-compassion is so that you can understand it in a way that's like, oh, that makes sense. You're not going to actively resist it. So you get the medicine, let's just say, that you need. So that's going to be the foundational building blocks for thriving in life, period. Right? So basically that onboarding process and then throughout the coaching practice allows us to get to know each other to the extent that I get to see what language will actually be such that you can receive the information that you need to move forward.
No, 100% agree with that. The onboarding is so important because it's the touch point they have first with you once they sign up to be a client of yours. We spent so much time. I'll share a story of, I'll use Purple Circle as a result because most people are not students who are listening to this. I can talk about my first career coaching, but it's a little different when you're a student. Is when we do the onboarding, we do the same thing. We do a personalized one-on-one onboarding where we talk about what their goals are, set that vision for them, tell them what success looks like. But some people have questions like, oh, you're going to give me like 10 things to do. I'm like, no, we're just going to focus on the one thing that's going to move the business forward. But also I like to understand how you like to be communicated with, like what's going to move you to action. So most coaches will take action anyways, but it's like, for example, if you are someone who needs to be reminded of other success stories of people who've done it, it's helpful for us to know that, all right, well, for example, if we are going to make sure that we fix your onboarding, we share a story of how a transformation could affect your client results. Versus some people are just like, I don't need any of that. Just tell me what to do. I'm going to move ahead. Drill sergeant, just tell me what to do, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that's so important to have that onboarding to get to know because that sets the tone for everything else. Like, yes, your clients, you probably want to start with some quick wins. But to me, the quick wins you have are in that onboarding where you get to figure out how they like to be communicate with what are their struggles, what are their successes, what are their strengths, and you get to package all this and then it feels more as transformative interaction versus like a transactional coaching that you're just doing just because they decide to pay you.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. And I love that you do that. That sounds like a great tailored kind of service as well. That way it's kind of like people get to learn at different levels, people get to move at different levels as well. Not everybody needs the same thing. And that's what I kind of see in my clients as well. It actually, I recently onboarded a couple new clients, and it is actually very helpful every time you do because you recognize that, you might be thinking, okay, now we're starting over here. And then when you actually are present with the person one on one, like, oh, no, no, no. We're actually going to start here because that actually is going to move them so much faster. Me continuing to
Exactly.
try to bring them up here first, that's such a disservice and not kind. And so I appreciate that you do that. One of the things that came up to me when you were talking about that is actually the onboarding process is literally the expansion process. There is a great book, maybe you've heard of it, 10X is Easier Than 2X by
Yes.
Benjamin Harding, Dan Sullivan, right? It's one of those things that it's like, it's so true. It's like identity shapes decision making. And if your identity is such that you're a struggler or, you're the person that's been struggling with whatever part of their life they've been struggling with, right? And you're starting from there, our privilege as a coach on the onboarding process is to be able to help them say, okay, no wonder this makes total sense why you've been feeling this way. But let me just help you see, like, okay, and you paint the expanded picture of the person who, does, learn how to direct their thoughts in a way that actually serves them and lets it be okay to actually constrain thinking so that it focuses on the problem that we're wanting to solve, not the problem of like worthiness, which we've been trying to solve for 40 years, right? We're not going to solve that so it is very helpful for them to just, number one, get permission that it's okay to do that. And number two, to start from a more expanded place. all of a sudden, literally, that's what I think holding spaces coaches is about. You can literally see them going, they're like breathing a sigh of relief, which allows them to kind of expand a little bit because there is a place for them in that expanded place.
Exactly. And so that's just a major tip here is like one of the things I've noticed is that when coaches tell me that their clients don't get results quickly or they don't renew at the end of it, oftentimes is setting up those expectations in the beginning and having that onboarding. And they're like, oh, but that's wasting a coaching session. I was like, well, it's going to help you and help your client a lot more on that one. So you've hit it already on that. It's like, it just creates more results for both sides. It's just what we want, right? We didn't become coaches to be the richest people in the world. If you're going to do that, there are other careers, as you know. And so it's all about like just transformation. So I love that you're staying grounded in those principles about figuring out where's this person and how can I meet them where they're at versus where I think they are and how they can meet me where I am at. So that's really powerful.
Or where they could be at, or the future
Yeah,
that they want to go to. Yeah.
exactly.
I actually think that is the fastest way to help people, and that's the fastest way to help ourselves as coaches as well. Every day we meet ourselves where we're at, which might be a lower place of belief, ourselves and our potential, or where we're going. And if we meet ourselves there on a day-to-day basis, wherever we're at, it helps us to get to where we want to go so much faster.
No, I 100% agree with you as well in terms of like the client transformation, where we're trying to get them as well. And then, funny enough, one of the questions you wanted me to make sure I asked you was, hey, it's not all bright. Like we create client results and transformations. You've listened to some amazing ones. And so one of the things you said that, hey, Davis, I would love to share with other coaches this is that some of the challenges you face as you're growing your business. So what are some of the ones that you've faced yourself as you're growing your business right now?
Yeah, I think this has been actually a really transformative year for that work because this year I realized some of the hardest work, the most uncomfortable work we as coaches face is this ego work that we have. Ego in terms of our perception of ourselves and the things that we actually, when we put the mirror up, we see where we're kind of confronting our own hypocrisy a little bit. And that can be like the number one way we sabotage ourselves. That's when we go silent on social media because we feel a little bit hypocritical because we're having a down day. Why? Because we're starting to believe our thoughts again, right? And so I think one of the things that has been really transformational for me is recognizing that actually when people say this is hard work, I feel like this is the hard work. The confronting ourselves when we feel like we're being a little hypocritical, especially as life coaches, or mindset coaches, right? It's different if you're a doctor and you're, versus a mindset coach. A mindset coach makes you think that you should be good at managing your mind all the time. And of course, we live in the breakthrough of it, right? So as long as we're actively aware that managing your mind is what it always propels us forward, or even bringing awareness to it, then we're actually living the work that we're talking about and helping other people with and normalizing the process of forgetting the tools and then remembering the tools. I think has been incredibly helpful for coaches helping other coaches, but also for us helping our clients because I'll have clients say, I wish I could remember these tools in the moment that I need them. And I'll just tell them, I'll say, the more that you practice this, the more that you'll remember them faster. But human nature is you move through the day on autopilot and then something happens. You notice your emotions first, probably something feels off. You don't feel that great. Then because you've been practicing this work, you bring awareness to it faster and then you remember the tools faster. But I think what I wanted to really just normalize for fellow coaches as well is it's a hard thing when the thing that you're doing is the thing that makes you feel like maybe the most hypocritical when you're kind of a little bit messy in your own life as well. But of course, we're all human. And the whole point is we serve our clients better when we can normalize the fact that cleaning up the mind is just something that we get to do. And the more that we realize it's just like showering, we get to do it every day because we know that we feel better, we operate better that way. Then it doesn't become this thing that we should be really, really good at this. It's just, we just know that new thoughts come in every day. Old beliefs come back in. Sabotaging patterns are there for a reason. And we recognize all of that. We can use that awareness to keep moving forward and continuing to help ourselves. And then by virtue of that, helping other people.
No, I think that's beautifully said because some people think that just because you are a mindset coach that you have to have everything figured out on it. It's kind of like if I talk to a bunch of my friends who are therapists, they have therapists as well, right? Because it's like the
Right.
evolution of it because you can't expect to have everything. If we did, or we're this perfect human being, that just doesn't exist. And so I love that you normalize that. It's like, hey, it's okay for you to feel doubt. Even if you're a mindset coach, you feel doubt. If you are a life coach, you feel like there's an area of your life that's messy. That's just normal. It's part of being a human being.
And also we get to work on it. That they're always
Exactly.
signals for us, right? It's like, okay, what is the thing that's causing our mind to keep sliding? It's like then we get to work on that area then so that it becomes quieter. So I think just even being able to look at different things like that, those are things that we get to work on and help ourselves with, put new systems in place if we need to. It's only when we start believing our thoughts and not remembering that we actually, that's why we're feeling this way, because the thoughts that we're believing have changed from, wow, this is great, I'm serving people, to, I don't know
Mm,
if I can do this, or, oh man, well, I'm not practicing what I preach. That's a thought. And of course, it's creating a different emotion, which is going to lead us to different types of action, including going silent when we need to be speaking
mm,
up, right? And it's just being able to normalize that, but then also walk ourselves through the process of transitioning back to where we want to go, recalibrating to where we want to go faster. That's what will help us as coaches thrive and not spend so many years struggling, right,
yeah.
Davis?
Exactly. Here's one thing I found really helpful. I tell myself this, so it's like advice I give myself, but also advice I give to other coaches as well. Is that whenever you're going through a hard time, wherever it is, and it feels like it's impacting your work, I always tell this too, is that one day you're gonna use this time and this story to help someone else out. And so that to
Nice.
me keeps that motivation going, right? But sometimes you feel like there's this messy area, you're like, do I want to work on it? I always remind myself, if I go through this, then I'll be able to help others with the same story and to get them their results or that transformation without going through, again, the rock bottom, let's say, moment that we
Yes.
talked about. And so I think that's a great mindset. That's how I tell myself too. So I have these little
I
sayings as
love that.
well.
Actually, that's
Yeah.
really nice. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to know also, like, well, let's flip it on a high note too. Is like, well, I love that you wanted to go low and talk about the difficulties we go through as coaches, but with yourself, like, congratulations on onboarding just a couple clients already recently. As in, what's the big goal that you're working towards now for your business and yourself?
That's a really great question because, of course, we could all say there's a revenue goal, and I actually like the revenue goal, right? Because it gives us something. It makes us match our effort to reach the revenue goal, right? Our effort and our systems, etc. I'm nowhere near a certain type of revenue goal that maybe I would like. I'd like to be able to create $1 million just by managing my mind. I think that, to be honest with you, would be the such a great experiment, not to be able to make the money, but because you're setting a tangible thing that people can see, but you're using it, you're getting there by directing your own mind there. And the reason why I think that's important is because I think that often we don't realize that that's how we succeed at anything. It can feel very complex, that there's lots of moving parts. But in reality, everything from becoming a doctor or going to Harvard or Yale, right? All that stuff, and even succeeding well beyond in excelling at high levels, whether you're an athlete or whether you're a mom who's managing, a household with 4 kids, whatever, all that change starts from learning how to direct your own mind and just bringing awareness and remembering that you can. So I think autonomy and agency is so important. So I guess a high level goal is to be able to set some sort of goal like that and then know that doing so is because you were committed to managing your mind until you reach that goal, right? Is that what Jim Rohn says? Long do you keep trying until, right? But to be honest with you, my bigger mission is, I think this is the way that I have chosen to, my contribution to helping maybe raise the percentage of people that are like maybe operating at the 1%. I'd love to bring the 99% up to the 1%. The reason why is because in reality, I feel like sometimes we're all jostling and talking about high performance and doing what 1%ers do. But the thing is, like, we've got a huge population and we've got lots of problems, right?
Hmm.
And we have so many more minds capable if they were able to collaborate together and share their own unique gifts together to be able to problem solve at a much higher level, simply because more brains are being able to focus on those problems, whatever they might be, whether it's hunger, whether it's politics, whether it's social justice, right? And the way that we do that, though, is by helping people remember their own ability to direct their own mind. And when you feel depressed and when your mental health is not great because you feel like the external circumstances aren't matching up to what your internal desires are, there's so many people languishing. And when we can help them with these tools and give each person this belief in their own ability to basically chart their own path, as long as they do that work with the emotional regulation and managing their minds, then they'll start tapping into what's possible for them. And the more that we can increase that level of awareness, that consciousness in people's own agency, it's almost like it is a mission, it's a movement versus just coaching individual people or businesses, right? That's obviously great. But I
Yeah.
really do feel like it is an overall movement of how can we create that ripple effect to help more people feel more capable of doing more amazing things. As Steve Jobs says, in this one beautiful life, can they make something beautiful that will be left behind for humanity to help other people? And the way that we can help as coaches is to help each one of us just tap into that brain of ours and remember we have it and that we can use it.
Very powerful. I love that you had, of course, you mentioned, yeah, of course, I'm a coach, I have a revenue goal, but I also have this impact goal as well. And I think that's the reason why we become coaches is yes, the income's important, but so is the impact on it. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you ever look at like the Purple Circle logo, literally after I became a coach, it's like Purple Circle, literally our motto is results over revenue because you want to be able to create results before the revenue. The revenue, that's not saying revenue is not important, but it's like you remember why we became coaches to be able to amplify people and to be able to transform the world, right? In terms of it. So I love that that's your goal as well. And I guess closing out to is it's been amazing talking to you. And of course, would love to have you back out in the future as I grow this podcast, I get better as well. It's in the meantime though, if people want to learn more about your coaching, obviously follow your work. I'm gonna link to your podcast already below as well. It's like what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. I mean, I admire the work that you're doing. That's the reason why, I was grateful to be on the podcast. So thank you so much for that. I do have a podcast called the End of the Day Podcast. It's a mindset podcast where I share just different ways that people can think about things differently so they can maybe connect some dots and actually start living differently themselves. That podcast is the End of the Day. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but you can look at everything through my website. It's KariWatterson.com, and that's KariWatterson.com. So,
Well,
but
we'll
I really
definitely
appreciate it, Davis.
we'll include that. And I love that you're about to hit some milestones with your podcast, as you know, as well. Well, actually, I won't say the number because by the time this comes out, you're going to be way past that milestone, but we will, we'll
Awesome.
chat more.
Thank you.
We'll chat
Thank you
more
so
about that.
much.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This conversation was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. To learn more about Purple Circle, our community, and how we can help you grow your business, visit joinpurplecircle.com.